And we're not even going to point out the mullet that we talked about yesterday.
Oh, bro, point it out, man. Rocking. Business in the front, party in the back.
But both of these guys know Steve Cecil, so you got to tell that story because it's peak Steve Cecil.
Oh, yeah. So Steve and I had a bet who could grow the best mullet for our FMI Europe missionary gathering in Barcelona 2 years ago. And he just can't. He went and got his haircut. So I won. And then I went to go cut my hair. And my wife goes, "Don't cut your hair." And I said, "Well, okay."
Awesome.
At this age, you just take every chance and opportunity you can get. So.
Yeah.
You count the wins, celebrate the wins. Celebrate the wins, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Ministry Without Hating It podcast, a ministry of Odyssey Haven coaching and counseling dedicated to the pursuit of answering the question, is it possible to do ministry without hating it? We have a theory that it just might be. Brenton, welcome back.
Hey, thank you.
Let's just call the elephant out in the room right now. You sound a lot more bassy, baritone.
Yeah.
Because you've been wrestling with, it's not the vid. This is what is it?
No, just some chest congestion for the last 3 weeks. And so here it is. And this is what everybody gets, my best voice. I feel like I could sing, I don't know, Barry White or something now.
Okay. Yeah. So also calling out the elephant in the room, if my voice cracks at any point during this, it's because I'm still going through puberty. So that's changes are happening. And
we're always in a state of transition, Chad.
Yes. Constant state of editing. Ooh, that's a deep cut. Some people will know what that means and some will definitely not. And that's okay.
Yep.
That's okay. Well, let's jump right to it. We got another great interview episode, this time with my friend, someone I met a few years ago. His name is Dhana Wimberly, and we met basically as a coaching training that we were going through at the same time, and it was in Seattle, and really got to know him well because we were there for a week and really enjoyed getting to know him over these past few years, and has become just a good friend. And Brenton, you got to meet him for the first time today. What did you think?
He was an amazing guest, and I can't wait to go out to coffee on your budget.
Okay. Well,
yep. So
Tim serves in Romania with his wife, Dhana. He talks about what they're doing there and how they even got there. But we also get to hear a lot of his story and stories of how God has just been refining him along the way, and how he's learned to continue to do this ministry stuff with actual joy. I think that's something you'll see within this interview, is that he really does carry, and it just kind of just is a very effervescent, joyful person and human being to be around. And so anyway, let's get on with the interview. We hope you enjoy our conversation with pastor and leader Dhana Wimberly. Well, my good friend Dhana Wimberly, it is so good to have you on the podcast. I told you yesterday, we got to have a little catch-up call yesterday, that you're one of the people that I wanted to have my act together before I had you on. So thank you. You finally have us to this spot of we've graduated where we can, we're a real boy now. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks, Chad. It's great to be here.
It's yes. And I won't even, I think the running joke is tired of, we'll see. And we'll just retire that right here, since I'm a real professional podcaster now. So we like to start off, I know you've had a chance to listen to some and see this, but we like to start off with some questions that have nothing to do with ministry, but need to be asked anyways. And one of my new favorite questions, we want to start off, you're one of our first ones with this, is describe yourself in 3 words.
Okay. Well, I would do 4 because it's kind of who we are, but
okay.
love God, love people.
Okay. That's no, so this is interesting because this actually doesn't necessarily, when you say descriptive, that sounds more like mission, but perhaps that's something that you're trying to tie in, or?
Well, no, it's 29 years of living those 4 words.
Okay.
And we use it to measure just about everything. And so that's why it's so easy to say. It'll be, if I have an epitaph, it'll be there.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I can think of a lot of other words, but I think it's just who we are. I would say if I did 3 words, I would say lover of people, just because that's what we do. And if it's too spiritual, we can get gnarly if you want to.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, let's now we can get real. Now that we've got the better than I deserve out of the way, go ahead and give us the real.
Yeah. I think I gave you real. I don't know if I have anything else.
I think you did too. You set us up. You said there were some more gnarly things there. So
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Lying already. Good. This is off to a great start. Wonderful. Tim, what's your superpower?
Superman.
Oh, that's like just all of the powers, right?
Yeah, it is. I love Superman. And I'll tell you 2 things. One, I love the t-shirt. I have a Superman t-shirt. I probably should have worn it. Probably. And we were in Cambodia for 3 years, and I had a kid who called me Superman. And the way he did it, because he was Cambodian, so he had this accent, and he goes, Superman. And so it's always been my favorite, but way before then. But anyway, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, I've kind of gone back and forth on if I should even ask this one, but tell us your favorite joke.
Oh
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So what did the fish say when he hit the wall? Damn.
That's right. I knew what you were gonna say. I just didn't know if you were gonna commit. You know?
Absolutely. I'm committed, bro. That's just too good. That's my favorite joke of all time. I just can't say it in church.
No.
I guess I could in some places, but.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. You have to know your context and your people.
Yes.
I don't think I could get away with it. Brenton? No, he's shaking.
I'm shaking my head.
No.
AJ, you can edit it if you need to.
So,
well, AJ's a youth pastor. He probably could.
We moved to the Midwest about 13 years ago. And as a young youth pastor coming out this direction from the West Coast, which is typically more liberal, there are things that are not cuss words that in the Midwest become cuss words.
Oh, yes.
That we did not have any clue over. And I offended so many parents very early on. Yeah. And I had no idea what I was doing. I was just like hurting people right and left with my words.
Oh, that's ministry. Oh, well.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Tim, where do you find inspiration? What's inspiring you, motivating you right now?
Well, is it too spiritual to say Jesus?
No, you can. I'll let you have that one
always.
too.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll let you have that one.
My wife, and then I would say some of the local people that we work with here. 2 of them are orphans and have grown up and become very, very intentional and successful, and what they've endured, what they've gone through, just huge inspiration in what they're trying to accomplish and what they're trying to do for the kingdom. So, yeah, I would say those would be the things that would come to my mind first.
Yeah. Well, and I'm curious if because this is also part of it's maybe a part B. Is some of that included in what you find yourself looking forward to right now, or what's exciting for you?
Yeah. So right now, one of our projects that we work on, which I can tell you, whatever, you can ask me any questions about what we do, but one of the projects that we're working on is we're actually doing our first mental health clinic And we're actually building a facility where this couple that we are partnering with, he grew up in a communist orphan home his whole life. She is a clinical psychologist with the focus of trauma and pediatrics. And it is a clinic for orphan and displaced children. And then it'll have 4 apartments for kids transitioning out of the orphan system here. The statistics right now are 1 in 40 make it in the real world. 1 in 40. And so we're going to change that. And so huge inspiration. We've already started. The building's going up, and it's really, really cool. And this is something that's existing. It's not like if you build the building, then we'll do the program. The program happens every week. And so this is stuff that's already happening, going on. We started a house church with a bunch of young adults that are all the volunteers. And so can you tell I'm passionate about that?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, and this might be a good point to pivot and ask you, because number one, you win the award for furthest into the future of a guest that we've ever interviewed.
True.
We figured you're like 7 or 8 hours ahead of us right now. So number one, how is the future? Do we have flying cars yet?
Yeah, no flying cars, but the future is bright.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good to know. Hopefully hoverboards are coming. Real hoverboards, by the way.
Yeah, no flying cars yet, though.
But tell us where you are and what it is that you're doing, because you already started to kind of go into what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah.
But give us where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, so we reside in Cluj. I'll say Cluj-Napoca, Romania. It's the second largest city in Romania, next to Bucharest, and we are FMI workers with Foursquare Missions International, and we were, prior to this, we were in Cambodia for 3 years, doing a lot of the same things that we're doing here. But there's a lot more, and you can ask any questions about what we're doing specifically. But 3 things that we really focus on: one is developing young leaders and creating, I wouldn't say church planning movements, although that's FMI, that's what Foursquare is all about, but really creating environments of discipleship, and especially with the younger generation. So that's one area. Second area is humanitarian. So we've been a part of an organization called Homes of Hope International, which was birthed in Tijuana, Mexico, with one of my dearest friends, Sean Lambert, who's also part of YWAM. And Homes of Hope started 36 years ago, and it's now in 25 nations, have built over 8,000 homes for the poor. And it was one of the catalysts that got us here and allowed us to have long-term visas. And the people who were starting it here didn't know that we were involved from the beginning. So huge opportunities. So we're building homes for the poor, both in Romania and Ukraine now because of the war. So these are temporary shelters that are being built on a consistent basis. And then the third area is we're part of a ministry team within FMI Europe, where we are serving our missionaries on the ground, as well as helping to care for, minister alongside the national works here in Europe, and then creating new opportunities for new ventures with startups and nations and such. And so one of the focal points that my wife and I focus on is coaching. We're both certified with the International Coaching Federation. That's where Chad and I met, was in training in Seattle. Right. Yeah. And so those are the 3 areas basically that we focus on. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes on that we do, but that's kind of the encapsulation.
Well, I like how number one, I like how you simplified, like these are our 3 main things that we do, kind of our focuses that we move forward, but then how that branches out from there. You mentioned, and I'm curious if you could maybe unpack a little bit of how you even got to where you're at, because I know you've not been there. This has not been your entire ministry work.
Uh-huh.
Walk us backwards a little bit of how you even got there and what even led to it. Like you said, what preceded you guys coming to Romania?
Yeah. Well, a lot of history there. We pastored. We started our vocational ministry in San Diego, California. We're youth pastors for 5 years. Then transferred to Olympia, Washington, where we were on staff and part of leadership of Living Water, which is just an amazing church in Olympia. There for 22 years, and that was our sending church that sent us to Cambodia. We went to Cambodia. We had been going to Cambodia for about 6 years prior to that, developing young leaders, a lot of orphans in Cambodia, and we were helping create opportunities for kids. They didn't have an orphan system per se, but really helping kids move on with their lives and doing transition with them as far as just transition into life. And then there was just some complications. The Lord redirected us, and I was doing my master's at Life Pacific University with Jeff Roper, who's a dear friend and now my boss. And anyway, long story, ended up in Romania. So we've been in Romania for 5 years. March 8th was 5 years. So we've been on the field for just almost 9 years. So is that okay? Does that help?
Yes, 100% does. Good.
What were some of the things that initially motivated you, or how did you take that step from moving? You were in Olympia, Washington, and then into Cambodia. What was some of the things that motivated you to do that? I mean, obviously the Lord's calling you there, right?
Yeah. That's the easy answer. But no, it's a great question, Brenda. I think so. I was teaching a class today, and I was talking about this whole step of faith, because one of our values is courage, and we were in, from our perspective, one of the best churches in the world, and God is still blessing, thriving church. Our kids were there; they're married. We got grandkids. The slate was laid. I mean, we would be there, we would retire. Everything was great, but there was this knock that kept coming to my heart, and actually it was my wife initially, and there was just this sense, and we've been in missions our whole life. I thought that's what you were supposed to do when I got saved. So it was just like it was this call, and so we were at a convention, and they were taking an offering for missions, and the guy got up to take the offering, and this is what he said, and this was the moment. Just to get to really answer your question. The guy said, listen, we're going to take an offering tonight. And I just felt really impressed that there's somebody that needs to hear this. So regardless if you give monetarily or not, I just believe there's somebody that needs to get into the offering plate.
Oh, wow.
And I just dropped to the floor and I wept like a baby. And I said, I'm done, Lord. I'm done. I'm getting in the plate. And it came by, and it wasn't a plate, it was a bag. So I stuck my hand inside of it and it came out, and I didn't take anything, but I just needed to do something, I needed to do something. And so anyway, that was the moment. And it took us another 18 months to get there, but that was the moment that I knew. And my wife and I went back, and we shared and talked. And so that's how it happened.
I have to ask that question just because I have a couple of young ministry leaders here that they know they're called into missions to some form, but they don't know what the next step is. And so they're just kind of looking around. And so I've just been trying to give them the stories of other people and how God's called them, because no story looks the same.
No.
Well, it sounds like you've got the offering mission. Yeah, as I say, you got the offering mission. Message now. You just need to say.
Well, and I would say this too, Brenton. Give them our contact information. Tell them to call us. We'll do video calls with them. they want to come here, or if we can open a door for where they are feeling impressed or called towards, because they need to go and see it. They need to go experience it, if there's things that are stirring in their hearts. And any way we can open doors for them, we would.
Perfect.
Well, and I'll say this too, and this is something even not just to your context, Brenton, but even to the broader. One of the things I've learned about Tim and his wife Dana is that they are very much embracing and opening. And I know, like Tim and I, previous to the world falling apart with the pandemic, we're talking pretty frequently, and he even coached me some. And to be able to have someone to bounce that stuff off of that's in the field, especially, and I would say for the listeners listening to this now, if that's something that's in your heart potentially, sure. Tim is a great person to reach out to, and we're going to make ways to do so available within this as well. And perhaps, I love that, someone needs to get in the offering plate, like that is like the best. That's the incredible.
Best. Yeah, it was life-changing.
That's incredible.
The visual that paints is so good.
It is.
Yeah. It's the tangible. So kind of before we get a little further down the line, and it's going to be a little different for you, because I think you can include the word missions in this. But one of the things that we do ask, and it helps serve as a baseline for some of the other conversation that we have, is that we ask each guest to define the word ministry and what that means to you. But I'm curious if missions is a separate word for you. And we had a guest recently that it's not they didn't love the words, it's just what comes, the kind of connotations that come with those words, and had to unpack that. But I'm curious what it means for you, if they are the same, or if it's two very separate things when it comes to how you define it.
Yeah. I know words are really important for a lot of people. I really don't try to spend a lot of time there, because I just feel like it can get convoluted in what I really believe and know that I'm supposed to be doing. I know that definition is important, but when you pose the word ministry, the first thing that comes to me is my life.
Okay.
And here's why I say that. I got radically saved. I was 20 years old. I was probably demon possessed, but I was just a drug addict and alcoholic and all these kinds of things. But I owned my own company, and I was very successful at a very young age. And this guy led me to the Lord. And I had never grown up in church. I had never experienced church. And so when I started reading the Bible, I thought it was like I was supposed to do this. I remember reading in Matthew 4 when, Jesus is calling Peter and John, and it says they dropped their nets and they followed him. And I'm like, okay, what do I need to drop? Uh-huh. And where do I need to go? And so I hope that doesn't sound too spiritual, because I don't feel like it is. But what I do feel is that I've never looked back. I've never stopped, and I've never seen a difference between being in a vocation and being in vocational ministry, because it's been my life. And if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I'd still be doing what I'm doing now. It would just be different. Yeah. Huh. And so, I mean, that's how I would define ministry. I mean, I started leading people to Jesus a week after I got saved. I memorized John 3:16 and 2 Corinthians 5:17. And I just shared those two verses with people and said, do you want to get saved? And some said yes, and some said no. And my whole business was one-on-one meetings. So I had their complete attention, and I didn't know anything else except that. Wow. And then I had some really wonderful people pour into my life and help me get rid of a lot of stuff. And I was pretty, I cussed like a sailor. So I was saying all kinds of things in the name of the Lord, but I didn't know.
So you mentioned that when you got saved, and I love that you just assume that's what you do. This is just, we jump right into ministry. And so in some ways, your salvation, no, not some ways, 100%, your salvation story has shaped your definition of ministry. I am curious, and we were talking about this while we were trying to reconnect, and we had some technical difficulties, listeners. So, we're on borrowed time already as it is with that. But
yeah, dang it! Why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just terrible that we're on the other side of the world and we're having these
I know.
issues.
I can't believe it. Technology. Why can't you work the way we want you to?
We are having first world problems.
That's right. Oh gosh, we might cut that out. So anyway, we don't need to get canceled. I'm just messing with Brenton. That's what we do. Anyway, what we were sidebar talking though is, okay, so this is, your thinking is this is just what you do. How have you managed to keep the joy so it doesn't slide into, well, this is what I have to do because I'm saved? Not, so it's not replacing the being with God for the doing for God.
Yeah. Well, do you know that song, All My Life You've Been Faithful?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, have I had some really crappy days in ministry? Oh gosh, yeah. Have I struggled and wanted to kill people? Yes. Have I thought the thought of if there were no people, ministry would be really simple?
Yes.
Absolutely. But when I think about everything that he has done, it kind of goes away pretty quickly. My wife, on the other hand, really struggles. I mean, she has to process quite a bit through being offended, hurt, overlooked. What are some of the other terms?
Doormat. How about that?
Doormat. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna leave the church, so we're not gonna call you or talk to you. We've only spent 10 years with you, but we're gonna just leave and not say anything.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Getting thrown under the bus, people not stepping up and defending you when you know that they really should, but they're afraid because they're afraid of what people think. I mean, I can go on and on, but when it's all said and done, he has been so faithful to me that I'm blown away that I get to do what I get to do. I mean, and I feel like that's always been my position. And I don't know if I'm just in denial or if it's real. And I think, after 38 years, I don't think it's denial. I think it's real. And I really feel like it is an absolute privilege. Jesus said, in this life, you're going to have challenges, but be of good cheer because I've overcome them all. I mean, if that's not branded on our forehead as ministers or people in ministry, it needs to be.
Yeah.
Because he's really there. And I'll just say this, I'm sure we'll talk about this somewhere else, but I believe that one of the reasons I feel like we've been successful in this journey has been we have stayed close to Jesus. And I really don't have any other answer.
Well, okay, so that's really interesting because that's actually a question we've asked quite frequently as well. Is you said the word successful, and for some in ministry, that's a trigger word because we don't actually know what that is. So what does that look like then for you? If you say we've been successful because we've been close to Jesus, we'll walk that backwards. Then what does that mean to have that success? Or what does it look like for you anyway?
Yeah. I think what it looks like for me, one of my greatest, do you call it an odometer? Not an odometer, metric or how to assess something, a measuring reed, Yeah.
Metrics are good. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say one of my greatest measuring reeds is my marriage. And the reason I say that is because why on earth would I ever want to be successful anywhere else if I can't do it right in my own home with my wife, with my family? And I'm not talking about perfection. I'm just talking about it really is where it starts. And I think this year we'll celebrate 38 years of marriage. And she's my best friend. She's my partner in what we do. And although it's changed over the years, it's always been that way. And I'm crazy about her, and I'm madly in love with my best friend. I really mean that. I'm not just trying to say that because I'm on this podcast. I'm saying it because it really is something that I really believe. And I really believe that because of that success, I feel like I can do anything. When I look at my kids, my oldest is 37, my youngest is 27, and I have 5 sons, and 5 daughter-in-laws and 11 grandchildren.
Your quiver is full. Yeah,
my
that's
quiver
good.
is full.
It's good.
And they all love Jesus. And let me say this, and I don't, just because of the day in which we live, they all love the church, and they're all sold out to and committed to what Christ did in that sense. I feel like I could die and go to heaven, and I would be successful. And it's interesting too, and I want to just say this. There are times when I'm speaking at churches or I'm doing things, and I want to shout from the rooftop about the success of my family, and I feel like I can't because I'm going to piss people off because it sounds overly spiritual. I don't feel overly spiritual. I have struggled. My kids have struggled, but for whatever reason, God's graced me with that. And I don't know if it's because religion wasn't a big deal for me. That relationship was where it's at. But when you ask me what is success, that's success. And I feel like in everything else that we do, not that it's all successful, but what we see, hey,
look at that.
What we see.
Listener, we just had confetti come down when he did the air quotes, which is I don't understand.
Awesome.
I just don't understand the things anymore. That was amazing. Oh, look, I got fireworks going. That's good.
Oh yeah, look at you.
All right. Anyway,
is this an air quote?
No, that was thumbs up. I got the fireworks.
I forgot what I was saying.
That's so weird. Well, I will say this, Tim. What I really appreciated, and maybe this will help jog what you were about to say, is that when you said success, it had nothing to do with what a lot of us would actually perceive as ministry. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that we don't say, because we've said over and over again,
sure,
our relationships at home, that's our first ministry. And that looks different for every person. I know that. But a lot of times we just don't see it as, that's not the first thing we go to and go, yep, I was successful in ministry. We look at, how many years we were in the church, how, the attendance, right? Sometimes,
right. Or how many baptisms, how many salvations. Yeah,
exactly. And we saw this over even a prolonged period of time. And yeah, just incredible. So thank you for that, for making it. It's because to me, when I think of that and I hear that makes me as a ministry leader go, well, that's attainable. That's not something, because oftentimes what I struggle with is that the work of the ministry is never done.
Yeah. And you
don't reach a point where you go, yep, I won.
Yeah. Well, and I would say this too, we have some friends living in a doing work in remote areas that are very dangerous and life-threatening. And I would say, I would tell you this, that probably their greatest success is the modeling of their lives to the people that they're walking next door to, because they can't do anything else, And so when we try to bring metrics to success based on our Western mindset, it can be pretty dangerous. It can, and a lot of people really struggle with that. They really do. And we, being, that we do a lot of coaching, we work with people on the field that are really wrestling with those things, feeling because of where they've come from, how they've been trained. I'm terrible. I suck at what I'm doing. Just all of that. So, yeah, I think really finding clarity on what success is and what that really looks like. And it's not that we don't look at numbers. It's not that we shouldn't look at those kinds of things, but why?
Yeah. What's the behind the target, which is, why are you firing to begin with?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. You said something, and you've mentioned this especially as one of your three core focuses that you guys are doing is serving the missionaries on the ground there, and that you have the opportunity to coach and that kind of a thing. And we have this conversation of what you're just talking about just now, of helping them define success and define where they're going. What are some of the things that you're seeing in your context that leaders are struggling with, but also as you coach them, some of the I'm a practicalities guy, so I like the practicalities of, no, this is taking the next step. How do you lead and invest in that where they're at?
Well, I think one thing about coaching that has really been transformational for me is that I don't have to have all the answers.
Yes.
And it really is about discovery. So I think my objective in working with people that are struggling or walking through something that, in ministry, or trying to figure, what does success look like, or what, those kinds of things. I think asking the right questions. And then the other thing is really listening to it and helping draw out, how do they see it, and how do they look at it, and how do they define it, rather than saying this is what it should look like. Even from my context,
Yeah.
So real careful not to bring answers and definitions versus, so what do you think? What do you see as something? Tell me something that you feel like you're winning at, just one thing, even if it's little,
Yeah.
So those kinds of things are kind of some of the ways in which we kind of help bring definition in that way. I don't know if I'm answering your question or not.
Yeah.
You can do a follow-up, but that's what I would say.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges? I'm curious if there are similarities when it comes to leadership that are across the board, or it's things that I deal with because I'm in the United States versus where you're at or where they're at.
Yeah.
What are some things they're running into?
Yeah. So here's a couple things I would say. Well, in regards to leadership across the board, I would say integrity is huge. Being who we are behind closed doors as well as in front of people.
Yeah.
And really being real, but a perfect example for me would be, this country walked out of communism, 1990 was when Ceausescu was assassinated in his own home on Christmas Day. And one of the big things that people struggle with here is suspicion, just very, very suspicious people.
Okay.
And so, getting a large gathering together and really, having a service, if you will, has not been. Now there are churches here that have been here for hundreds of years, and they gather and they do their thing. But like when I first moved here, I met somebody at a coffee shop, said, "Hey, you want to have coffee?" We got together. I went to buy his coffee, and his first question was, "What do you want?" So that's not necessarily a challenge that I would have in the U.S. Somebody would say, "Yeah, could you give me a sandwich too?"
That's right.
But here it's totally the opposite. We saw a young family at an ice cream shop, and we wanted to buy them ice cream, and they finally let us do it, and then they waited for us outside of the ice cream, and they were like, "Why did you do that?" And so we went into this long story, and now we have a relationship, 4 years later, and we're really good friends with them.
Oh, wow.
So those kinds of things are the things. And let me say this too. Every moment is an opportunity.
Yeah.
Every conversation, every person we meet, every place we go is an opportunity. And that has been something that has been really transformational for me as a minister in the West. That getting back to the fact that, man, there's just people all around us, and they're just waiting for somebody to ask them a question or invite them to coffee or something,
Yeah.
And so I think taking advantage of every moment, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that a lot of conversations that I have here is realizing and helping, especially those onboarding and coming, they're new to the field here, just feeling like, man, we were hoping to have at least 100 people by now. And they've been here a year and a half, it's like, hey, there's only 3. And like, man, thank God for the 3. And so, but I will say this, once those things are developed and you begin to build relationship, man, there is a hunger that's here that is, I think it's everywhere for anybody who's seeking the Lord and wanting to find Him. But there's a real desire, and we feel like we've been kind of trying to get on the board to get the right wave, and we've hit a couple little waves, and we've kind of rode a little bit, and it's been cool, but we just feel like this wave is coming, and we've seen like 3 people get baptized, and it's just like really exciting. And most of these people have no context of religion other than Orthodox, and they just don't want anything to do with it. So
yeah. Well, I love how you change the perspective of everything as an opportunity, because I think that can be encouraging / inspiring maybe for those that in the United States feeling the exact same thing. I should be further down the line than I am, and it's like, well, what's the opportunity with what you do have? Not saying that there aren't moments that God uses those things to move us and to shake things up and to ask the questions, but when you said, they waited and they just want to know why you did that, that was actually the word that I thought of as what an opportunity right there to actually to be able, it's almost like serving up a softball pitch, like, oh, well, actually, without sounding too, we have an ulterior motive type of a thing.
Yeah. Well, let me just, if it's okay, let me just tell you this little story about my mom. So my mom left my dad. My dad was a professional golfer. Matter of fact, he was inducted in the PGA Hall of Fame in November. And died in December.
Oh yeah. I was just waiting. You're right.
Yeah, my mom.
Gravity of that one, Lance. Keep going.
1969. So back up about 7 years before that. So pause. I didn't know what I'm going to tell you until I was 31, and I found my mom's journal in a storage unit that she put all of her stuff in when she left my dad. And I was 31 years old at that time. So back to a few years before she married my dad, she went to a Billy Graham crusade. She was 17 years old. She got saved, went home. They invited her to a church, and she walked into the church, and in her journal, this is what she wrote. I went to church tonight, like they asked me to go, and no one said anything to me. I won't ever go back there. Period.
Wow.
And I was 31 years old, and it changed my life.
Wow.
And that was the moment that I saw every moment is an opportunity. Yeah. Every person matters. Yeah. And we have no idea what's happening in the life of somebody that's on the other side of our cashier, of our coffee shop, you name it. You just put the person there. Yeah. And all we got to do is ask the right question. All we got to do is say, hey, how are you? Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. Every church I've been a pastor in, I've been a greeter first. I joined the greeters team, whether they let me on the team or not.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I want people to feel like the greatest decision they made was to come to church today. And it was all because it was inspired by my mom.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's where that comes from.
Well, and that's great because I can tell you not everyone is as jovial and warm and embracing as you are naturally, sure. I feel like, but it's still, it goes back to, this is what we're called to do. This is the mission that we're all on, just regardless of position or role. And it's so simple sometimes, like you said, of just,
it really
hey,
is.
how you're doing? Or, yeah. I'm finding anymore, especially interactions with strangers. And by strangers, I have no previous acquaintance with them. But it's in the little things, even if it's a joke or it's about sports or it's, it's the little cracked door, I guess you can say that is there that you can. Now, I'm not saying that, I've led people to the Lord in the middle of Walmart or something like that. But at the same time, I'm also not turning down and like, okay, yeah, like, all right, I'm here to, buy something. Thanks a lot,
right.
type of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think where I get really convicted is I'm just so engulfed in me that I forget about them.
Yeah.
And my place and you know what, we're busy. I mean, we got responsibilities, we got stuff. I'm not making a case for that at all. But I think sometimes we just forget that. What are we doing? What are we here for? Mm-hmm. And that's back to the question about ministry. And how do you define that? Well, I mean, this is it, isn't it? I mean, it's learning how to live that, and we do that with whoever we're with. And what an opportunity to model! What an opportunity to be a living example with the people that we love, and the people that we're getting to know, and the people that we're getting ready to know. So,
yeah, that's good. I'm taking a moment. Sorry, I'm just kind of processing. That's good. And it's I think it's people. I can't remember where I heard this so long ago. So oftentimes we confuse the ministry as work for the people, but people are the ministry. And,
no question.
And I think it just draws back to keeping what's the main thing, mm-hmm.
Yep.
And something we've said even recently, even on this podcast, is that, we look at the life of Jesus and how he was uninterruptible and how he, was available and would stop and be present wherever he was at, because he saw them as opportunities.
That's right.
So
it's really good.
That's good. I want to ask some kind of, I think this pivots a little bit here. You've written a book. I've not had a chance to read it.
Okay.
But it titled the Backside of Hope.
Yeah.
Which is a fun, that's a fun title in itself. And I'll let you talk about that. I'm curious, where that started for you, and if some of the stories that you've already told, even within your own personal history, have come forward with that. Because I know the tag for it, or as part of the title, right, is that leaving a legacy for the next generation. So
Sure.
Where did that begin for you? Where does that come from?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, it took 8 years to write, 4 iterations, and I was never going to publish it, and I only wrote it because I wanted my kids to know where they came from, and my grandkids. And cool thing, this was probably a year ago. I was telling my kid, or one of my sons, I was just saying, man, it'll be cool one day when the kids are older and they're able to read and you can give them the copy of your book to read about their grandpa. And he looked at me and goes, well, why would I do that, Dad? You should give him a copy of the book.
That's good.
And I thought, yeah, you're right, man.
Fun.
That was really good. That's so good. So, anyway, I really, it was like therapy for me. Connie, who helped me write the book, just an amazing individual. The Lord just spoke to her and said, you need to write your story, and came to me and said, I want to help you do it. And so for 1 year, we met once a week for an hour, and she recorded, she wrote, took notes. She would send me those notes. I would write, make changes, add, subtract, and, the thing about my life was I was a habitual liar. I was a thief, drug addict. I mean, all of those things. And as I began to write, and we then began to interview people, I began to realize that so much of my life was a lie. And so, it was like, I mean, we would be in these sessions, and we would be hitting on these topics in these areas. And then I would come to find out that it wasn't really true. And I'd just be in a puddle, I'd just be a mess. It was like counseling for a year.
Wow.
And so, but it was revolutionary. I mean, it really had a huge impact on my life. I was at a conference one time, and Mark Batterson, who's one of my favorite authors, made this statement, and I was right in the middle of writing my book, and I felt like quitting. And he just said this. He says, everyone should write a book. And he said, and you're asking the question, why? He says, let me tell you. He says, they're like time capsules for generations that you'll never meet. Mm-hmm. Since we published this book, not translated, but my book has been shipped to 25 nations.
Wow.
Never in my wildest dream. I mean, never would I have thought that many people would be interested.
I need to say this because people maybe listening don't know. There's an earnestness in his eyes. Even there is no pretense of like that's a humble brag drop. Like no. you really are like say
blown
what?
Away. Yeah. And the only reason I know that is because they keep track of the records on Amazon.
Yep.
But it's just been an incredible gift. So the book is in two parts. The first part is my story and how I came to Christ. I've been on my own since I was 12 years old. I was in and out of juvenile correctional facilities. It's quite an amazing story. And then the second half is really about just some principles and things that my wife and I have walked through. Forgiveness was a huge thing in my life. I was, like I mentioned, I got really transformed. I mean, radically saved. I was here and then I was there. And I went through this whole thing of forgiveness from all the people that I had abused, women, families, people I'd stolen from. I mean, I went to everybody. I went to face with as many people as I could find just to tell them that I was sorry, ask for forgiveness, and told them that Jesus loved them and he transformed my life. And so I just wanted to encapsulate that. And so we did, and the Lord's, just continued to use it. And it's really a cool thing. So we're actually looking at the possible potential of having it translated into Romanian because we've had a lot of requests for it. And so, yeah. So did I answer your question?
Absolutely. Well,
okay.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of to follow up with that. So give me the story behind the title and how that okay. relates to,
sure.
anybody listening right now.
Yeah. So I had for 18 years in my office in Olympia, I had a picture. Do you remember the integrity? It's like the characters with the pictures of like, the golf course, and it says peace and, yeah. Okay. So I had a picture in my office that had a little boy with long blonde hair and his hands in his back pocket looking out at the ocean. And at the bottom, it said priorities. And underneath it, it said this. It said 100 years from now, it won't matter what kind of car you drove or what kind of house you lived in or how much money you had in the bank. But what will matter is the difference that you made in the life of a child. So my wife took that picture off the wall. I was traveling for a week or so. She took it off the wall. She took that picture that's on the cover of my boys with their hands in their back pocket at our fence line of our home, looking out at Mount Rainier. And she took that picture. She put it into a brand new, beautiful frame. And she, put the same priorities and the same quote, but put that picture in there and mounted it back on the wall.
Wow.
And that was the week before Father's Day. And it took me about 10 days to see it.
So that's the man scan. Keep going.
Yeah, but once I saw it, I wept like a baby. And so, yeah. So it was profound. So that's how, now that we've had the book, it's been published since 2015, and we thought, well, it would have been cool if on the other side of the book it would have been their faces, But oh well, maybe a republishing someday.
That's right. Maybe in the 25th anniversary.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for being, for taking us into that moment with you. That's a gift.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
I'm curious, Tim, your thoughts on the state of the local church engagement versus the global, and how you see that playing out.
Yeah, I would say from a local church perspective, I just think, Acts 1:8, I mean, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts. I think if we can build a missions program around that, I think we could find maybe balance is probably not the best word to use, but I would say just a perspective of being mindful of the Great Commission, yet realizing that we need to evangelize Jerusalem. We need to do the outskirts. But what does that look like for us as a local church? And then third, like Brenton, you were talking about these kids that are feeling this call. I just think as pastors to champion these people who feel this nudge and call to go. And then, I mean, this is where you got to be brutally honest. You got to be truthful, because there's some people that just, and this is what I would say, creating a vetting process that allows you the opportunity to really find out if they're really serious or not. For example, people that when we oversaw missions at our church, people that were really wanting to go, we would say, if you want to go with us, we have a program that is available to any of our church family members who are interested in going to the field, where they could be equipped and trained further. And that was kind of a weeding process, if you will, where they had to go for a period of time to train and to find out if, is this something I really want to do? There's all kinds of other venues and opportunities, and they can take those. But as far as the local church, but then when they did, like, for example, two of the couples that we sent while we were there, they are so committed to our church, our home church, and our home church is committed to them and has walked with them for years. And they are impacting the world in which they are. They feel covered, they feel loved, you know what I mean? And so being intentional about sending people to these places and being committed to that, I would say that's something I think is just, because we can get so enthralled with our local work because we need to, and it's important. But there are these people who've never heard the gospel, people that need to be equipped and trained, and so
I'll wind us up with this. One of the things that I do like to ask, especially in light of what you're talking about earlier and passionate about, but what are some things that are really encouraging to you about the state of ministry or missions, or even ministry leaders, that is just encouraging you, inspiring you as we look ahead?
Yeah. I sense that there is a stirring in the hearts of people to go to places that nobody's been. And I mean, we're even seeing that right here in Romania with some of the kids, the young adults that we are pouring into and training and equipping, and the questions that they are asking about. So what would it look like if I did this? I know they can because they're from here, but what about me? And I think these kinds of questions and opportunities, because again, it's not telling them what they need to do. It's asking them the right questions that lead them to discovering that they really are capable and that they really have what it takes because they've got Jesus. And so that brings just a tremendous amount of hope to me. But I also see this too, stirrings. I mean, we have teams coming from a couple of different universities this summer, actually in May, towards the end of May and June. And these are kids that have been the last couple of years. They are sold out. They want to make a difference with their lives. And so I think really striking while the iron's hot, really, taking the opportunity to mobilize and give opportunity for this generation of young people, young adults, young families that are, in some ways, are really able and capable to go do things and still keep their jobs in some cases. In others, they're ready to sell everything, let go of everything, raise their own support and go because they have this sense of calling. And so, I would say that is something that's incredibly encouraging. I will say this too. I just want to say this. Another thing that's incredibly encouraging, and I alluded to this earlier, but my marriage, my family, and my grandkids, and the opportunity that I have to be a voice at this season of my life. I'm going to be 60 this year. Having the opportunity to not to tell, but to live and to model, and then to ask really good questions, and seeing the response of my family, I feel incredibly inspired. And the things that some of my kids are doing right where they are, right in their own Jerusalem, and yet in the same way, they're looking for opportunities to help us succeed, help others succeed, and go, themselves. So just personally, I mean, just to see that from my own home and from my own rooftop is incredibly inspiring.
Yeah. Well, it's inspiring to me to see you, especially when you say you're about to turn 60. You don't even look close to that. And so, number one, that's inspiring. But also, too, I think, honestly, just especially in this conversation, I think, and Brenton, you jump in on this too, the joy that just comes forth from you because, and I love what you said earlier, God has always been faithful and he's just said, move forward. Exactly. And so that once again is great perspective, especially when we're talking about doing this without hating it, moving forward.
Yes.
And knowing that every moment that God has been faithful in and continues to bring you to is another opportunity to just be that joy and love to others. And so, man, I'm grateful, especially when you talk about how you're excited about raising up, the next generation of leaders and how that is also one of your focuses. You're exactly where God wants you to be. And so thank you for doing that, stepping out.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for saying
that. Tim, this has been great. It's been a joy. You are a joy. And I'm going to say this: the mullet is working for you. The more I look at it, it just it's working.
It kind of rubs off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this: it's working for my wife, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. I think you said that before we even started. It's like, listen, you get to a certain age, it's like, she says, keep it, I'm keeping it.
Absolutely. Yep. Real simple.
So there you go. There you go. Well, Tim, thank you once again for just giving us your time. This has just been great. So thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate it. God bless you guys.
Thank you.
Well, we want to once again thank our guest, Tim Wimberly, for giving us his time today. Really, really great stuff. Hopefully it was encouraging to you and inspiring moving forward. If you'd like to connect further with Tim, we have made ways to do so available in the episode show notes. And if you'd like to connect with us further, support the podcast, or sign up for show updates, just go to withouthatingit.com to get started. And don't forget to subscribe to Ministry Without Hating It wherever it is that you get your podcasts so that you don't miss out on future episode releases. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.